The mop hit the marble floor, and Ebier Tamuno did not look up. She had learned over 3 years that looking up cost you something. Eye contact invited demands. A lifted chin attracted contempt. So she kept her eyes down and her hands moving, working the wet mop in long, practiced strokes across the gleaming lobby of Triton Capital Holdings, the most prestigious financial tower in the city. Again, Choi Min-seok's voice cut across the lobby like a slap. How many times do I have to walk around your bucket? He didn't wait for an answer. He never did. Instead, he deliberately kicked the yellow warning sign she had placed beside the wet section of floor, sending it skidding across the marble with a sharp, ugly clatter that made 3 junior employees flinch. Ebier stopped mopping. She walked calmly to retrieve the sign, placed it back, and returned to her work. Unbelievable, Min-seok muttered loudly to the man beside him, Treasurer Park D1, who offered a thin, uncomfortable smile. Born to clean. Some people just know their place, don't they? A few people in the lobby heard. Most pretended they hadn't. One young woman, a new analyst named Seo Yuna, stared at the back of Ebier's gray uniform with an expression caught somewhere between pity and unease. Ebier said nothing. She never said anything. And that, more than anything, unsettled Yuna, because the woman mopping that floor was not broken. She moved with the quiet, unhurried certainty of someone who had survived things that would have destroyed other people, and had come out the other side not hardened, but refined. There was something in her posture that didn't belong to a maid. But no one had figured out what that something was. Not yet. The morning announcement came at 9:47, broadcast over every screen in the building simultaneously. Triton Capital Holdings will receive its new majority shareholder, an incoming global chief executive officer, today at noon. All senior staff are expected in the main lobby. This is not optional. The silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then the building erupted. Min-seok dropped his coffee cup. It didn't break, but the sound of it hitting the desk was loud enough to bring his assistant rushing in from the outer office, pale-faced and breathless. "Who is it?" she whispered. "They won't say." Min-seok's jaw tightened. "They never say." The name circulating for weeks in board-level whispers was one that made financial directors across 3 continents sweat through their suits. Kang Jun-hyuk, founder of the KJH Group, a man who had appeared from nowhere 12 years ago with a small logistics company in Busan, and had, through a series of precise, almost surgical acquisitions, built a cross-continental empire that now held interests in shipping, energy, technology infrastructure, and financial services. He was 41 years old. He had never once appeared in a profile interview. No verified photographs existed in the public domain. Every picture claimed to be him turned out to be someone else. His lawyers had made certain of that. What was known, what the markets had confirmed through sheer, terrifying results, was that he did not lose. Not negotiations, not lawsuits, not hostile takeover battles, not once. And now he was coming here. By 10:30, Triton Capital's 14th floor looked like the backstage area of a theater production opening night. Junior staff were being redirected away from the lobby. 3 executives had already locked themselves in conference rooms to review their employment contracts. The head of internal compliance, a nervous man named Oh Byung-chul, had reportedly vomited twice in the executive bathroom and was now sitting in a stall with his phone, calling his personal attorney. Ebier learned about all of it the same way she learned most things in that building. She was there, and no one considered her worth hiding anything from. She emptied waste baskets on the 14th floor at 11:15, and she heard everything: the panicked phone calls, the hushed arguments, the sound of a grown man crying quietly behind a closed door. She pushed her cart through the corridor with the same steady pace she always used, and she absorbed it all without changing expression. But when she rounded the corner toward the service elevator, she stopped for just a moment. Her hand rested on the edge of her cart. Her eyes closed briefly, not from exhaustion, but from the particular weight of a feeling she had carried for a very long time. Something was settling around her, something she had been waiting for long enough that she had almost stopped recognizing the sensation. She opened her eyes. She pressed the elevator button. She went back to work. By 11:45, the lobby had been transformed. Flower arrangements that usually decorated the reception desk had been repositioned along the welcome corridor. Every executive on the senior leadership team stood in a composed, self-conscious line, fitted suits, careful postures, expressions balanced delicately between authority and deference. Choi Min-seok stood near the front. He had changed his tie twice. He was now wearing the charcoal Ermenegildo Zegna that his wife had bought him for his 50th birthday, which he saved for occasions when he needed to project absolute command. He straightened it one more time. Ebier Tamuno was 15 feet away, working a polishing cloth slowly along the brass panel beside the building's main entrance column. She had not been asked to leave. No one had thought to ask her to leave. Min-seok noticed her and felt a flicker of irritation. "You," he said, "move to the back, we have a guest arriving." Ebier looked at him. She nodded once, picked up her cloth and her small supply caddy, and moved to the far end of the lobby near the secondary column, where she resumed working. A few of the younger employees watched her walk away. Yuna, standing near the back of the reception line, watched the way Ebier moved and thought again that there was something she could not name, something in the line of the woman's shoulders, the way she held her chin, that did not fit. She was still thinking about it when the vehicles arrived. 3 black SUVs, no logos, no flags, the kind of vehicles that said everything by saying nothing. They pulled up to the entrance in a configuration that suggested prior planning, one slightly ahead of the others, flanked by the remaining 2 at deliberate angles, creating a visual corridor between the vehicles and the building's entrance. The lobby doors opened. 4 security personnel entered first. Tall, efficient, expressionless. They swept the space with the practiced calm of people who had done this in locations far more dangerous than a corporate lobby. They took their positions. And then the building went quiet. Not the polite quiet of a professional environment. The involuntary quiet of human beings in the presence of someone who generates a field of gravity by simply existing in a space. Kang Junhyuk walked in. He was not what the executives had expected. They had assembled an image in their minds from nothing, and that image, shaped by the mythology of his reputation, had grown enormous and abstract. They expected someone theatrical, someone who performed power. He wore a dark, well-cut suit. No pocket square, no tie pin. He was lean and composed, with sharp eyes that moved across the room in 2 measured sweeps, not the look of a man taking in his surroundings, but the look of a man confirming that a situation is exactly what he already knew it to be. He walked slowly. No one spoke. The executive line stirred in unconscious unison, several of them inclining slightly forward as he passed. Min-seok felt the pull and resisted it. He was a senior director, not a subordinate, and then felt it again, stronger, and found that he was bowing anyway just slightly before he was fully aware of having done it. Junhyuk did not acknowledge the line. His eyes had stopped moving. He had seen something. He stopped walking. It was so sudden that the security personnel behind him adjusted their positioning, scanning for a threat. The 2 executives who had stepped forward to begin formal greetings found themselves suspended in half-completed gestures, hands extended to nothing, sentences started and instantly orphaned. Junhyuk was looking at a woman in a gray uniform at the far end of the lobby. She had her back to him. She was polishing the brass panel on the secondary column. She had not turned around. He took 1 step toward her. Then another. The entire room watched him cross the lobby floor in silence. He stopped when he was a few feet behind her. For a moment, he simply stood there. Then, very quietly, so quietly that the people nearest the front of the executive line had to later confirm with each other what they had heard, because they could not believe they had heard it, he said. "Mom, why are you still working here?" Ebier Tamuno's hand stopped moving against the brass. She did not turn around immediately. She stood very still, with the slow, concentrated stillness of a person deciding something. Then she turned. She looked at her son. He looked at her. Her eyes, steady for so long, through so many things, filled in a way that she did not allow to spill over. Her jaw held, but something behind her face broke open, quietly, like a door finally swinging on a hinge that had been stiff for years. Jun Hyuk stepped forward. He took his mother's hands, the hands holding the polishing cloth, still slightly damp, and held them in his. He didn't say anything else for a moment. He didn't need to. The lobby was completely frozen. Min Seok's brain was running several operations simultaneously and managing to complete none of them. He was trying to process what he had seen, construct an explanation, compare it against everything he knew, and simultaneously locate a context in which this was not what it appeared to be. He found nothing. His mouth was open. He closed it. He opened it again. One of the junior staff members near the back had begun to cry and did not know why. Yuna stood very still with both hands pressed flat against her thighs and thought, "I knew. I didn't know what I knew, but I knew." Then Jun Hyuk slowly turned and faced the room. His expression had not changed. That was what made it devastating. He was not triumphant. He was not performing. He was simply present in the way that people are present when they have rehearsed a truth long enough that delivering it no longer costs them the way it once did. "Her name," he said clearly, "is Ebier Tamuno. She is my mother." He paused. "She has worked in this building for 3 years. She has cleaned these floors, emptied the bins on your executive levels, and been spoken to in ways that I will not repeat because they do not deserve to be repeated. And every single day she came back." He looked at Min Seok. Min Seok looked back. He had the expression of a man watching a wall fall toward him, still standing, still upright, not because he had survived, but because the wall had not yet arrived. "Before we go further, before this moment reaches its full reckoning, take a breath with me. You've been sitting with this story, and something in it has been sitting with you. Maybe it's the image of a woman mopping floors when she deserved to be seated at the head of a table. Maybe it's the way real strength is quiet, and real dignity doesn't announce itself. Maybe you're thinking of someone in your life who sacrificed everything and was never properly seen. You belong here. You are part of the Velvet Empire family, and this story was made for you. Before we continue, I want to pause and speak a blessing over you, not as a formality, as something I genuinely mean. To everyone watching this who is carrying more than people know, may your body be held in good health. May your bones stay strong, your rest be real, and your mornings return your strength. May sudden illness be turned away from your door. May the peace in your home be undisturbed by conflict, by worry, by the quiet weight of fear. For your children and your grandchildren, may favor follow them. May their paths be protected, their futures opened, and their names spoken well. In uncertain times, may your finances hold, and may provision reach you from directions you did not expect. May wisdom settle in you before every decision. May the things you have carried silently, the losses, the disappointments, the grief you never found the right words for, may those begin to heal. And may you live long, with joy that belongs to you, and purpose that finds you before the end. To the Velvet Empire family, you are why this community exists. If this story has touched you today, like this video so we can reach more people who need it. Subscribe, it is truly the only way we can keep going and keep bringing these stories to you. And drop Amen in the comments so I know you were here. You are not just a viewer, you are family. Now let's go back. because the reckoning is just beginning. Jun Hyuk did not raise his voice. That, it turned out, was the most frightening thing about him. "I want to tell you something about this company," he said. "Not the version in the prospectus, the real one." He turned slightly, and something in his posture shifted, still controlled, but with an edge beneath it now, the way a calm sea has pressure under it that the surface doesn't show. Triton Capital Holdings was founded 23 years ago. Most of you know that. What you may not know, or what some of you have spent a great deal of energy ensuring others would not know, is that it was founded by my father, Kang Sung-il, a man who believed that financial institutions could be built on something other than fear. He let that settle. My father died when I was 17. A stroke, the death certificate said. The board moved quickly after that. Within 8 weeks, my mother had been removed from the shareholders' register. The documents that transferred her stake were signed while she was still in the hospital, sitting with me, being told her husband was gone. Her legal representation at the time, later found to have received a payment from one of the board members, advised her to sign. Min Seok had gone the color of old paper. She signed, Jun Hyuk continued, because she trusted the institution her husband had built. She signed because grief does not leave you much room to read fine print. And she signed because the people in this room, some of them standing in this lobby right now, told her it was what my father would have wanted. He looked at the line of executives. It was not what my father would have wanted. Park Di-won took a step backward. It was small and involuntary, and everyone saw it. For the next 12 years, Jun Hyuk said, my mother worked cleaning jobs, multiple buildings, multiple shifts. She worked nights so I could study in the mornings. She wore the same coat for 6 winters. She sold her wedding ring to pay for my first semester of university. When I tried to discuss it with her, she told me it was just metal. She said the marriage wasn't in the ring. He looked at Ebier. She was watching him with her hands clasped in front of her, expression composed, but her eyes were doing what they always did when he said things she had tried to teach him not to say out loud. They were full. I made her a promise, Jun Hyuk said. I promised that I would never publicly connect her to me until I had rebuilt what was taken, until the people responsible faced actual consequences. Not media, not a lawsuit she couldn't afford, actual consequences. He turned back to the room. That time is now. The doors behind him opened. 3 men in professional attire entered, carrying document cases. Behind them, 2 additional security personnel, and behind those, a woman in a formal blazer whom several of the executives recognized immediately. Song Hae-jin, the country's most prominent corporate governance attorney, who had not lost a case in 11 years, and who was presently not making eye contact with anyone in the room, because she did not need to. As of 6:52 this morning, Jun Hyuk said, KJH Holdings completed the acquisition of a controlling 54% stake in Triton Capital, purchased through a series of intermediary vehicles over the past 26 months. The board was notified this morning. I am told several of them have already retained counsel. He almost smiled. It didn't reach anything warm. Good. He looked at Min Seok directly. Choi Min Seok, Executive Director of Operations, 17 years of tenure. Your role in the original board maneuver that removed my mother from this company has been documented. Additionally, a review of internal records from the past 3 years, records which your department was responsible for maintaining, has revealed a pattern of altered expense reporting, undisclosed vendor relationships, and what my legal team is describing conservatively as a habit of using company infrastructure for outcomes that benefited you personally. Min Seok's mouth moved. I would like to. You're terminated. It wasn't a sentence, it was the closing of a door. Your access cards have already been deactivated. Your personal items will be sent to you. You will hear from Song Hae-jin's office before the end of the week. I suggest you engage your own counsel before then. Minsiok stood there for one more second, the last second of a version of himself that had existed for 17 years in this building, that had walked these floors with the certainty of a man who had never been made to answer for anything. Then a security officer stepped gently beside him, and that version of him was gone. Park D1 was already on his phone. Oh Byung-chul had come out of the stairwell, apparently having heard something, and was now standing near the back with the expression of a man who had decided that full and immediate cooperation was his only viable strategy. Jun-hyuk watched Minsiok leave. He did not look satisfied. He looked the way people look when something is finally, at long last, simply correct. Not joyful, correct. He turned back to the remaining staff, not just the executive line now, but the full lobby, which had filled as word traveled through the building at the speed that only shock and consequence can travel. Administrative assistants, analysts, maintenance workers who had been redirected away from the lobby an hour earlier and had quietly come back when news arrived that something was happening. Ebier was still standing where she had been. She had not moved. She watched her son the way she had always watched him, with a careful pride that she had never once let become loudness, because loudness, she had long ago decided, was for people who were not certain. She was certain. She had always been certain. Jun-hyuk faced the room. I want to say one thing to everyone in this building, not just the leadership, all of you. The people who answer phones and file documents and clean bathrooms and fix broken chairs and do the things that make it possible for other people to sit in offices and call themselves important. He paused. A company that cannot treat those people with basic dignity does not deserve to stand. That is not a philosophical position. It is a statement about what sustainable institutions are actually built on. This company was built, in part, by the sacrifices of a woman who spent 3 years cleaning its floors, while some of the people in its highest positions treated her as though she were furniture. That ends today. He turned to his legal team and nodded once. Song Hae-jin opened her document case. The restructuring began. It took 4 hours. 4 hours during which the 14th floor became a processing center for what would later be described in financial news outlets as one of the most comprehensive executive restructurings in the industry's recent memory. 3 senior directors were placed on immediate administrative suspension pending investigation. 2 resigned voluntarily before their meetings were scheduled. Oh Byung-chul, true to the decision visible on his face in the lobby, provided 6 years of documentation to Song Hae-jin's team without being formally asked. During all of it, Ebier sat in a chair near the secondary column. Someone had brought her tea. She hadn't asked for it. A junior analyst, not Yuna, a young man from the finance team named Baek Seung-ho, who had watched the whole morning unfold from the 4th floor and come down 20 minutes later with a cup from the executive kitchen, had set it on the floor beside her chair without saying a word and walked away. She held it with both hands and drank it slowly. At 4:17, Jun-hyuk sat down beside her. For a long moment, they didn't speak. The building moved around them, document cases opening and closing, heels on marble, low, urgent voices. But in the space where they were sitting, there was a quiet that had been a long time coming. You knew this was today, Ebier said finally. It wasn't a question. I knew it would be today for about 6 weeks, he said. And you said nothing. You would have left the job. She considered that. I would have. I needed it on the record, the internal footage, the testimony, the documentation of how staff in cleaning services were spoken to in this building. I needed it here, not in a lawyer's deposition. She was quiet for a moment. That's very cold. Yes. You didn't learn that from me. He looked at her. No, I learned it from what happened to you. Ebier looked down at her tea. There was a long silence. Your father would have been very loud about this, she said softly, he would have made a speech. I know. He would have cried. Probably. He would have been right to. She looked up. Her eyes were clear now. Whatever had been held behind them had found somewhere to go. Jun Hyuk. Mom. I am very proud of you, she said it simply, without decoration. The way she said everything that mattered. I have been proud of you since before you knew there was anything to be proud of. But today specifically, I want you to know that. He nodded. He did not trust his voice entirely. He had his mother's control and his father's feeling, and the combination meant he could walk into a room of hostile executives and not flinch. But he could not quite absorb his mother saying those words in that voice without feeling 17 again. 17, and sitting in a hospital corridor, while the adult world arranged itself around him into something unrecognizable. He took a breath. There's one more thing, he said. Ebier raised an eyebrow. Song Hae-jin's team has drafted a proposal for the Triton Foundation's restructuring. New mandate, worker welfare, employee dignity, fair labor advocacy. It'll be independently funded as part of the acquisition settlement. He paused. I want you to chair it. Ebier looked at him. Honorary chairwoman, real authority, real resources, and an office on the 14th floor. She was very still. The same floor, he added carefully, where Min-seok's office used to be. She looked at her son for a long moment. Then Ebier Tamuno, who had sold her wedding ring and skipped meals and worked 3 cleaning jobs and worn the same coat for 6 winters and mopped a marble floor every day for 3 years while men who had stolen from her laughed nearby. Ebier Tamuno laughed. Not a polite laugh, a real one. The kind that started somewhere deep and came out with force and surprise and relief. It filled the lobby. Several employees who heard it couldn't explain afterward why it made them feel the way it did. Like something had been corrected at a level below language. Like the building itself had settled back into alignment. Yuna, standing near the reception desk, pressed her hand over her mouth. Baek Seung-ho, the analyst who had brought the tea, was quietly crying again, and he didn't mind this time. Jun Hyuk stood. He extended his hand to his mother. She took it and he helped her to her feet, not because she needed help, but because he wanted to, because there were some gestures that existed outside of necessity. He looked at her. Let's go. They walked toward the exit together, the CEO of a global empire and the woman who had made him possible, whose hands were still slightly rough from the polishing cloth she'd set down 2 hours ago. The lobby parted around them. Employees stepped aside, not in the practiced deference of professional hierarchy, but in something quieter and more genuine. Some of them bowed, not all, but enough. The glass doors opened. The light outside was the specific gold of late afternoon, the kind that lands warmly, that makes ordinary surfaces look briefly precious. Ebier stepped through first. Jun Hyuk followed. Behind them, in the lobby of a building that had once decided she was invisible, the employees of Triton Capital Holdings stood in silence and watched them go. If this story moved something in you today, if you found yourself holding your breath at any point, or thinking of someone you love, or quietly nodding at what it means to be seen, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me what you felt. Tell me who in this story you saw yourself in. Tell me what Ebier made you think of. Jun Hyuk, Ebier, Choi Min-seok finally getting what was coming to him, talked to me. The Velvet Empire comment section is one of the warmest places on the internet, and that is because of you. And if you are new here, if this is the first Velvet Empire story you've watched, there are more waiting for you. Stories about people who were written off and came back. About quiet strength and slow justice. About the kind of love that doesn't announce itself. We have more, and we're not stopping. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Like this video so it can reach somebody who needs it today. You are not just a viewer. You have never been just a viewer. You are Velvet Empire. And somewhere out there, a woman just walked out of the building that tried to erase her, head up, shoulders back, her son's hand steady beside hers, and she did not look back. She never needed to.